Hey, we are live, Dan.
Yes, we are.
Without a net. Yes. Right.
Arguably one of the greatest concert videos ever recorded.
Yeah, it's pretty good. But also, really, they had a net. They were fine. Like, they'll be okay. Just like here, really, there's no consequences for utter failure since, it's just you and me talking and sometimes one other person randomly commenting and that one Nazi dude who keeps shouting stuff at us.
Yeah, it's good to be reminded that those people exist.
Yeah, that's a Russian bot, maybe. They might not actually exist.
Yeah.
Someone's behind. Someone's a ghost in the machine. We'll get started here.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, man. All right. This should be the podcast, episode number 26. That's the number we're on? That is the number we're on. Woo-hoo-hoo.
We're beating the average with every installment.
I feel like it. I was coming in under the wire about where I was going to do this thing today. I thought I'd have to move everything around because we had like another phase of our house being fixed up. I told you months ago we had like a water leak.
Yeah.
Remember? Did I tell you about that?
Yeah.
And they finally did like carpet stuff. So I had to get everything out of our bedroom. I had everything crammed into this room. And I didn't think it was going to happen because if we never get back into the other room, Sally would be asleep in here right now. And I would somehow set this up in the garage. And I have no idea how that was going to work. But I was going to do it just to see how it goes.
I mean, I was about to complain about me being busy, but you seem much more busy than I am.
No, I mean, that wasn't. I mean, it's been a couple hours of my time outside of work, just moving stuff around. It's been nothing really crazy. What's been busy with you?
Just like a lot of it comes down to I did so many like shows in a row, like so I never had like weekends where you would do like weekend stuff, like laundry and like vacuuming and like general stuff. And so I would kind of cram it all like at like nights, and then like work's been picking up with like just various things I have to do. So and then I've also got to like learn a bunch of new songs, and then trying to find time in there to like actually relax. So it's just been one of those kind of periods, but I'll be fine. On Sunday I was able to accomplish. I replaced a doorknob, and so that I was like, all right, well, I did one productive thing today. I got caught up on that.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Yeah, changing doorknobs. I was just thinking about the idea of you not having underwear for weeks and weeks. That was pretty funny.
Well, I didn't do zero laundry, but like it was just like
it was like just maintenance intervals.
Well, the kids have so much clothes that like, I'll do like 2 loads in one day, and then it just turns into this giant pile of unfolded laundry. So it's like anytime you put on a shirt, you're just like, that one. And then you just pull it out of the pile. And like, it's one of those kind of things. I never get around to like folding and putting away. Like that's.
Yeah. I admittedly do less of the laundry in the house, but like we stay on top of it a lot. And by we, I mean Sally for the most part. But like when it was if it was me solo or like early, I would always I couldn't stand having piles of laundry. That's something that drives me nuts, dude. It really I'd rather leave piles of dishes in my kitchen, which is gross, than have like
okay. See, I'm the opposite. I guess the thing is that like dishes like are more noticeable. Like you can't just hang out in your house and keep walking past the kitchen. You're like, oh, right. But like laundry, I can just leave in a pile in the upstairs, and then I forget about it. I'm like, oh, that sounds like tomorrow Dan's problem. And then
like tomorrow Dan has no underwear. All of his shirts are wrinkled. It's just a giant, disgusting mile.
Showing up to work looking like a used car salesman.
So didn't you wear that yesterday? Like, hey man, listen, don't judge me, okay?
Gil's got to get a sale. I met with a dude the other day, and it was a business meeting, and he was kind of showing up, and like I went to his office, and like his collar was kind of like disheveled a little bit. There was like over by the sink there was like crumbs where somebody had made a sandwich. I wanted to be like, pull yourself together, man. Like this is a place of business. I don't know. which would be incredibly hypocritical and judgmental coming from me. But anyway,
yeah. Well, whatever. I mean, you got standards, Dan. I believe in you. You know? Yep. So, what do you want to chat about?
I was going to talk about the hypocritical punk rock thing.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's what's grinding your gears. That's what.
Oh well, okay. So I
grinds my gears. Sorry.
When I can't find the droids I'm looking for. No.
I know, right? Right.
Somebody was the other day was like talking about like Tom Morello and how he's like who would be an example of like the ultimate like anti-establishment kind of thing, where it's like, you know, Rage Against the Machine, but like now it's like raging for the machine in, you know, on behalf of the machine, you know, like. And I thought that there was an interesting parallel, like that. I'm always talking about like personality archetypes, like the type of people who are really not all people who are into like, you know, punk rock and sort of rebellious kind of stuff, but like people who are like they just vibe with this anti-establishment thing. So what they do is they latch onto whatever the establishment is. Okay, well, I'm for the opposite of that, but then. You do that long enough, eventually that becomes the establishment, and now you're just a card, you know, poster boy for the establishment. Mm-hmm. And so, was it about the particular values, or was it about like the rebellion for its own sake? You know, so it's like you compare that to like the Bolsheviks and the Marxist people. They're all about like, well, you know, the people in charge are bad, and they're oppressing the workers and stuff like that. And so what do? They kill all the people in charge, then they become in charge. And what do? They oppress all the workers. So it's like,
right.
You know,
so the Rage Against the Machine one is annoying because like it's like, you know, their albums, like the big albums like Evil Empire, you know, it's like, you know, it's the prototypical anger against like the American empire, the American machine,
as they're benefiting from it.
The capitalist, you know, the capitalist like overreach and all that stuff, which yes, that they then benefited from in an insane way. But
because I mean, this was the 90s. Then they were just throwing money at these people, you know, and it's not like, you know, they get a record deal and it's going in all the record stores, you know, right. $18 a pop. You know, Tom Morello went to Harvard. I mean,
dude. Oh gosh, I had to have shown you this before. I'm pretty sure that circulated on some text. His original band, like one of the ones he was in, like one of the first record deals he got in a different band. It's so the anti everything from Rage Against the Machine. It's like late 80s, early 90s, like Spin Doctors / freaking like just some weird like. Oh gosh, what's the band? Like almost like Faith No More. It's just like it's weird. It's very creepy, but it's also it's still, and like the music is terrible, but it's still Tom Morello playing guitar like he's in Rage Against the Machine. It's just none of it fits right, and it's hilarious.
That's weird.
So if you have, I'll send this to you. I'll find it for you later.
Yeah,
we should have. We didn't have that queued up, but
it reminded me a lot of what you guys would talk about back in the day, like the idea of like everybody who's selling out. And it was like, I always found that to be kind of a dumb criticism because like, I don't have particularly an anti-establishment bent in that regard. But on a certain level, you do have to respect the people who like, they don't just completely change their whole vibe when there happens to be money on their side. So it's a strange hill to die on, you know, for music. Cause I'm, you know, as an artist, you know, we're all like, well, hey, look, if I can get paid for doing what I'm doing, that's great, you know? So, but if you hang your hat on the idea of like success equals bad, then you're kind of stuck because it's like, well, then what are you doing? Like, you're either dooming yourself to a life of poverty, or you benefit from your success and then you look like a phony.
Well, it's different than what we're talking about here, I think, right? Because like Rage Against the Machine it's not like they latched onto a sound and like tried to make a bunch of money that way. Like they're pretty original and they're very talented, and like, you know what I mean? So their stuff became big, and I don't fault that, but like for sure, they were, you know, you're the anti-corporatist kind of band, and then you're like the corporatist kind of band after that, and that's only gotten worse over the years,
right? So I guess there's the idea of, okay, there's two levels of hypocrisy. Yeah. There's the one where they're benefiting from the capitalist system that they love tearing down, right? And so if they were really like consistent about it, they would refuse all of that stuff and like, live in a hut or something. I don't know,
like on a van down by the river. They would
just But then there's two is that their viewpoints are now the establishment. Sure. So like they actually don't mind the machine as long as the machine is saying things that they like.
Correct.
Right. So you know what I mean? Like it's like we were talking about last week with people talking about how much they love Kamala Harris. And it's like, oh, it's so great. There's a woman. And you're like, oh, okay. So you must have voted for Sarah Palin. Like, well, no.
No, not that.
I didn't agree with your viewpoints. I'm like, oh, so viewpoints do matter, right? Yeah. But so there's a hypocrisy there.
Yeah, and like, gosh, what was it? Like when they started touring after COVID or something, like the ticket prices, or maybe it was like was it pre-COVID or post-COVID? Like when they started touring again, they're freaking like the concert tickets were like $150 a piece to go see Rage Against the Machine, which is just freaking ridiculous, man. But yeah, so like that's a weird thing I could never wrap my head around. And like again, I don't fault people for wanting to make some money, but like I don't know. They've already made a lot of money. Maybe it's all gone. I mean, it's not my thing to
I don't know.
Judge them on that one. But like, there was this weird. Something's not ringing true if you're Raging Against the Machine and your Ticketmaster sales cost like after fees like $200 to go see them. That's pretty bonkers.
Yeah, Ticketmaster is the worst.
Yeah, they really are. Like all that, but that's a whole other side story. But like even bands like there's like smaller punk rock bands. I forgot the name of the band. It doesn't matter.
Green Day.
You would know. No, not Green Day, but this is one of them though.
They had a Broadway show.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So right, the whole American whatever. But like there was a smaller punk rock band, which again I can't remember the name, but they were only doing shows. They did a show early post COVID, and you had to be vaccinated to go, and they sold a few tickets for unvaccinated people, and they charged like $1,000 a ticket if you were unvaccinated or something like that. And this is like a small, like, like not an indie rock, punk rock stuff, but like a pretty decent post punk rock scene and whatever. They would probably play clubs that hold like 400, 500 people. But Green Day's done the same thing. They do like vaccinated only shows, like The Offspring. Oh yeah, they're real badasses. They kicked their drummer out of the band because he couldn't get the vaccine. And,
right, I heard about that. Yeah.
So all these we're so edge lords, and we're just dirty punk rock kids living on the streets and be like, I'm scared of the coronavirus because my drummer won't get vaccinated, which I don't know. It's just and it's funny because like I've seen videos of The Offspring playing. They're all like pushing 50. Like wearing suits when they're jamming out. It's just like, oh, it's so weird. It's not a thing anymore. But I mean, it's so funny. Just an aging contrarian, an aging an aging anti-culturalist or whatever kind of term you want to use. Again, the non-mainstream becomes mainstream, and whatever. And the punk rock bands and those like rap rock stuff like Rage Against the Machine, they were all pushing boundaries of music, and then it became popular. And then people use that sellout term and all that kind of stuff. But then, as they get older, they literally do kind of sell out, like legit. They're like, well, I'm gonna make bank on these tours, and that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
And you bow to political pressure and like what it takes to have shows and stuff like that. I mean, you could have balls like Eric Clapton and be like, I'm not playing anywhere that requires a vaccine passport.
Yeah, that was a bold strategy.
And he's like oh no, he's hated for that. Like,
I mean, he'll
Eric Clapton, man.
He'll be fine.
Yeah, no, right, no, yeah.
He could sell one guitar and buy a new house.
Eric Clapton's not hurt. I agree. And not that like you have to be anti-establishment in this regard. Like say, hey, like the COVID stuff. But if you jump to the other side and be like, I only do vaccinated shows. I will not do this other thing. And you're an asshole if you're not doing that. Be like, well, that's what everyone's doing. And like, what are you then? You're just part of the same.
So
part of the same monolith of noise.
So this brings up, I guess, to me, what the root of the matter is what is it? So as an outsider viewing the whole punk ethos, what is it that attracts certain the type of people, so it's like, is it the values, like the specific viewpoints, or is it the fact that you feel like there's a societal need, like there's a usefulness
Yeah.
to rebelling, right? So I feel like underneath this big umbrella, you're going to have both kinds of people.
Yep.
Right. So say it's the 80s, and you're like in, Margaret Thatcher's England. Right. And so if you're a person who's like really about like, well, I'm in favor of workers' rights and gay rights and stuff, rights for whatever stuff that we'd be rebelling against conservatism.
Yep.
Right. And then you got person next to him who's like, the actual viewpoints aren't so much important. It's just the idea that it's a few controlling many. So that's what you're trying to buck against. Now, in that scenario, both the enemies of both people are the same, right? But then you fast forward 30 years, and now all these sort of liberal progressive values are the mainstream. And so now these two buddies are at odds with each other because this guy's happy as a clam because all his viewpoints are now mainstream. This dude is like, I don't really care if the viewpoints that I like are in power. The point is that it's an oligarchy, right?
Yeah, I don't think a lot of it is the oligarchy or just the revolt against power for power's sake. I mean, maybe it is in some degrees.
Like in a teenage emotional way, it's cool to buck the system, and you haven't really thought your viewpoints through.
So,
right, maybe, or
I'll give you my opinion on what I've talked about with people. I was never into like punk and hard rock or like hardcore and stuff like that because of any necessarily the worldview or anything like that. I literally just like the music,
right?
And that's what I like to play. So that aside, I'm not probably the best spokesman for that, but I have tons of friends that are definitely into the movement, quote unquote. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, obviously the rebellion angle's there, and that's a big push, and I think that's always there with some of it anyway, just as an underground music scene. So that's just there, and that's always a huge factor. What a percentage of it is, I don't know, but also I know a lot of people that are really dedicated to whatever causes they had, which are typically more like, I don't know, socially liberal causes. I'm just using that in a generic term. And I don't mean that in a negative way in any way, shape, or form.
Is this why you get some potentially strange bedfellows, where you have like ultra left wing, almost communist kind of people at the same shows where you see like neo-Nazi skinheads? They're both sort of raging against the same machine, but from opposite directions, and they have this weird thing in common. We're like, wait, you like that really fast music? I like that fast music. Oh, but wait a minute. It's like,
yeah, like. In the punk rock scene, the Nazi skinhead stuff isn't really part of it. Now, where
it's pretty small.
Like that's more like I guess it's into like some heavy metal stuff. I don't know why. I don't know where that. Yeah, but yeah.
Sidebar: have you seen that movie Green Room?
No, I don't think so.
I think it's called Green Room. Yeah, it's very good. It's okay. So it's a thriller.
Okay.
Like, Anton Yelkin, who died a few years ago, he was on Star Trek. Anyway, he plays this guy in this punk rock band in like a Pacific Northeast or whatever. And so they're just trying to pick up some random show. So they pick up a show at like some random bike rally, like in the middle of nowhere. It turns out it's a bunch of like skinhead Nazi people. And then they get kind of trapped in the green room because somebody gets hurt. They don't want the cops to know about it. Patrick Stewart shows up playing this evil dude. And so they have to escape. And then there's like a shootout and stuff. It's a really good movie.
Right.
It's like a sort of a horror thriller thing, but it's very unusual. It was like an indie thing, but it's pretty cool.
I'll take a look.
Okay.
But I forgot where we were. But either way, that's okay. So like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like some of the overtly like political like punk rock bands like Bad Religions, kind of mind, like vehemently like atheists, very left wing kind of guys, but also that's just like their music stuff, and that's how it comes across, and that's how but they're not like I don't know, they're not like uber exclusionary about it, but like they I think they've held true to their ethos as a band, and they haven't changed their musical style. Like they're like still more or less the same band for the past, like they've been a band for like 25 freaking 30 years, man. They're like one of those original punk rock bands that lasted for a long time. But
what about somebody like Henry Rollins?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good.
Or is
example.
he the outlier?
No. Well, yeah. No, I think he's probably more. I would consider him a more legit, honest dude, and I don't mean honest in like a negative way. I'm not saying, because people's ideas can change and their political philosophy can.
He seems like a very genuine man.
Genuine is a good term.
and
Yes.
he's very
And
curious, and
yeah,
he, you know what I mean. So
right. And I would think that homeboy there would still like probably subscribe to um most of his social beliefs that he would have had when he was in bands and stuff like that. I, I've heard an interview, or I've read a few of his stuff. But he's funny because he does like spoken word and like poetry now. Like he's went from his artistic stuff deviated
yeah,
probably way more than his philosophy has changed. But like I don't see him shilling for any major like because all right. So in general, we're always talking about this in like a political social sphere,
yeah. I don't see him going on there and making commercials and being like, "You should get vaccinated."
right?
I don't see him doing that.
Or like doing like a Joe Biden fundraiser. That
Right.
doesn't strike me as that is happening. However, like I'm pretty sure Green Day did a thing for Joe Biden. It's just like, oh, okay, come on, really, come on, dude. Like, you don't want to be an American idiot, but you're gonna vote for Joe Biden
Yeah.
or Kamala Harris or whatever, or like
Or like that terrible Super Bowl commercial from like, was it last year where Bruce Springsteen was like narrating? I think we already talked about this, where
That was
it was
great.
like, in the middle of Kansas, there's a church, and then there's like these B-roll shots of him like wearing a denim jacket, like acting like a farmer. I'm like, dude, you're from
Yeah.
New Jersey, you're not a
Right.
farmer. So annoying. We need to have unity and come together. And it's like, that's the most phoniest message. Nobody making that commercial believes that at all. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. But like and it's also not fair to like pigeonhole people for that. So like if you're in an earlier part of your career and you're super anti-establishment, and then later you become more establishment, I don't know. It's disappointing and it's stupid. But then again, what are you gonna do? It's also you're talking all of these bands that have changed like that. It's like 20, 30 years. It's a huge span of their career. And it's still funny though. I agree.
Yeah.
It's still a criticism.
Maybe it makes it look more goofy when you have somebody who's, because we're all dumb when we're young, right? But then you have a person who's clearly in their 50s with a mortgage and a 401k singing songs about taking down the man that they wrote when they were 20, and then it's a weird juxtaposition as opposed to like, all right, well, my art's going to mature with me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and there's room for both. There's room for both of those things, I think.
Like when you see the Beastie Boys now, like, I don't know, they seem to get away with it.
2/3 of the Beastie Boys did. One of them did.
Right. Yeah, I don't follow
yeah.
them, but yeah.
But like, I don't know. But like, they weren't overtly political or anything like that. But like, and I don't know. Henry Rollins is a good example. Who else is out there?
He would be a good model to emulate, I would think.
Yeah, right. In terms of the term genuine's good, and like, and he's got good integrity, I think.
I guess that's one of the things that separates punk from metal to me, in the sense that metal was more about. I think I would describe heavy metal as being more introspective, and punk is more about the outside world.
I think that's correct.
Right. Yeah, so you can have a band like Metallica or Megadeth, or to pick me more recent examples, like because James Hetfield can sing songs he wrote when he was 20, because it's about a picture of a mood. It's more emotional, right? So yeah, and like, metal can age with you, I guess. It just, I don't know, it feels less incongruous to see like a guy who's like 60 years old being in a metal band as opposed, I don't know. Maybe I'm not an expert on punk, so maybe it just doesn't. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know, but like I saw a few shows during the Trump years, punk rock bands that are current, some indie rock bands that were like, just doing their rounds as they get older, and they were all like, "Fuck Trump," blah blah blah, a couple times during the show. You're like, all right, well, I expected that. I mean, no big deal. I mean, whatever. It wasn't like super annoying, but like it was just like off the cuff comments every now and again. You're like, all right, I can put up with that. I'm on a freaking punk rock show. I get that. Not that I like Donald Trump or anything. It's just like, I'd rather just listen to your music. But if you want to talk about it, that's fine. That's your deal. And it didn't strike me as not genuine or phony or in any way, shape, or form. But I guess I don't know. Like when with a band that latches on to like a cultural phenomenon that's going on, like the COVID reaction, that seems. And before that, you were counterculture, and then you are now mainstream uber culture. That seems like a big disconnect. I don't care how long you've been a band. That just seems funny to me.
Yeah.
And like, whatever. You'd also be like Kid Rock, and you like, I'm not shutting down my bar. I'm gonna have 8,000 people in here, like the March of 2019,
Yeah.
or like 20. So like, it's just like you can be a dick about it too, and just like, oh, I'm gonna swim in COVID. That's what I'm doing. And it's just like, and then that becomes countercultural in a stupid way, or maybe not a stupid way. Just or you could I don't know. Not that Kid Rock's not my idol here, but he's a bad example for everyone.
I have heard very wildly conflicting accounts of Kid Rock. You talk to some people and they're like, dude, it's one of the coolest dudes I've ever met. People tell some story about like hanging out in some random small town, like in Michigan or somewhere. And they're like, and Kid Rock was there. He was giving drinks and everybody. He was smoking weed with the whole crew. It was a great dude. And then you talk to somebody else who was like, he was the worst human I've ever known. So I don't know what to believe about Kid
I bet
Rock.
both of those things are probably true. And I can say with all sincerity, his music is awful. He's never done anything good. And I mean that. I hate everything Kid Rock's ever put out there.
He's done
The
a
only thing
few.
he did Joe Dirt. I liked him in Joe Dirt. He was
Yeah, where he always pulls up in the convertible with the BTO plan.
but other than that, I don't
forgot about
appreciate
that.
any of his artistic endeavors, man.
Some of his tunes I find to be not terrible, or at least mildly enjoyable,
Okay.
but they're usually the ones where he ripped off some other more famous song. So,
Right. Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it was a tough call. We almost walked down the aisle to Ba Wa Ta Ba. That would have been that was my first wedding song. It was it was a runner up for our first dance. It was right up there. But whatever. That whole scene sucks to me. But like, I don't understand that whole genre of music. But like none of that stuff, like like that whole era. And I'm gonna lump in like Limp Bizkit and Korn and a bunch of those bands around that time. They all super countercultural, but like in a I don't know, in like a degenerate way. You know what I mean? Like,
But
rebelling
also in a we're benefiting from large corporate dollars sort of way.
Oh yeah, I was gonna get there. So like they were
Okay.
just like, like Korn, like, oh, all day I dream about sex. I'm gonna revolt against like this '90s, like really kind of conservative-ish kind of American culture kind of thing, and like make that just little goth grunge kids like transition and think that's really cool and awesome. And if you like Korn, fine, whatever. I don't give a shit. But also then they just got oodles and oodles of money to be this stupid freaking caricature of a degenerate thing. Just like, I don't know. It's such a weird, I don't know. I hate it. I hate all that. But like I would call, and that's not even selling out because again, they were doing their own thing and it became popular. But it's just,
Maybe a better example would be somebody like Trent Reznor. Like
I would think he's more authentic. What would you?
well, that's what I mean. Like I've never really enjoyed listening to Nine Inch Nails at all.
Me neither.
But like
Not
I
really.
respect him as a person because he somehow transitioned into being like one of the top film composers in Hollywood.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, wow, okay, I didn't see that coming, but all right, And then you wrote that Johnny Cash song that was great, and he's had an interesting career.
Yeah, he's got an interesting career. Like he's a very talented dude, like classically trained musician and all sorts of stuff, and just globbed onto this like that scene that he liked in his music, that electronic freaking whatever the hell you want to call it. I don't remember
Industrial. I don't know.
Industrial. That's the term. I forgot about that. There's only like 6 industrial bands out there that ever did anything. Obviously, Nine Inch Nails was the biggest one.
Yeah.
But or like stuff like Marilyn Manson, right? Like shock rock stuff. Like that's
Yeah, that never did anything for me.
yeah, I mean neither. And like the music's not even good. Like, but it's okay in some respects. Like the couple Marilyn Manson songs that are good, that are kind of catchy, are really good, and then everything else is just hot freaking garbage.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you think about like what of stuff that we consider like classic and almost hokey now from like the 50s and 60s that was considered like daring. You know what I mean? Like people just couldn't wrap their head around like Bob Dylan. They're like, I understand. The guy can't even sing. He's writing songs that are like have a million verses. Like this is not music, right? But and in any other scenario, Bob Dylan would have just faded into obscurity where he would have been a poet, right? But like it just so happened that at the exact time that he showed up, every hippie in Chapel Hill like just like latched onto him, right?
Sure.
Of
Yeah.
our parents' generation, and it was like, I don't know, like There are some, I guess there's some music from that, like legitimately you look back and you're like, all right, well, I can see why Elvis was a superstar, right? And you can see why,
Yeah.
the Beatles, and the Stones, you can see why these people became big. Like they'd done something that just appealed to everyone. But there was a lot of, people who quote unquote knew about music at the time being like, I don't understand why everybody likes this.
Right. Yeah. Right. That's always going to hit, right? There's always that kind of stuff. There's stuff that just breaks through and then becomes iconic. But then I don't know. But it's funny because was it this year? They had that big concert in Chicago, and like Limp Bizkit was the headliner, and like Fred Durst was all dressed up, looking like a retard, and we're looking like a
shock,
like a cop from like the 80s or something like that, and like everyone's like watch Limp Bizkit kill it on this reunion show or whatever, and I watched like 20 minutes of it. I was like, this still sucks. Every part of this is terrible. None of this was good. And it wasn't good then, and it's not good now. I don't care what you say.
There's some stuff that I really just don't like. You have to I guess it's the epitome of like you had to be there. You know what I mean? Like it's like okay, you got the Beatles, but then you also have like Yoko Ono, right? Anybody from any generation can look at the Beatles and be like, okay, I clearly see they did some stuff that was genius here. But like, unless you were like one of Yoko Ono's friends, like objectively, you're like, what is this? What is this crap? And I think that's how I can't help but look at like bands like Limp Bizkit. I'm just like, look, okay. I get maybe if you were at a certain time and place and you were just at this right little crest of your puberty arcing, why Limp Bizkit, like, I don't know, it just hits me in my soul, man. And then it just works. But like,
I don't know. This is so not fair either, because I fully admit that I listen to music and have listened to music that nobody likes, and I'm okay with that, and I really like it, and it's stuff I still listen to. There are bands that still put out albums that like 1/1000th of Americans have no idea who they are, and I still love it, and it's still great. So I have no room to speak about music being, I think, I will still say it all day long. Limp Bizkit sucks and there's no redeeming quality. But then stuff I would listen to, people are like, that sucks and there's no redeeming quality. Like, I get that. That's fair.
Yeah,
but
fair enough.
I'm still gonna say it. It's cut and dry for me, and I completely understand that it's subjective. However, I guess I don't know. Back to the original point, like Rage Against the Machine is annoying. That it's tough to be listening to people. See, it sucks because you give these guys more credence than they probably need. So they had a couple good albums. They made maybe some good points socially about some things. That doesn't mean that their opinion thereafter is valid.
Yeah,
and people might still want to listen to it.
It depends on how much they make the message of the lyrics integral to their songs, right? So it's like,
and I feel like they did.
Yeah, they're like, it's maybe, like a band like Stryper. If you are not a Christian, Stryper is terribly annoying, right? Now, setting aside whether the music, it's like very.
If you are a Christian, Stryper is still terribly annoying. So.
Well, that maybe so, but it's like it's hard to, because it's so central, right? It's hard to just think about the music and not absorb the meaning. So on the whole flip side of the coin, like, because what's the guy's name, Zach De La Rocha or whatever, like, because the point, the message is so integral to, it's not like other bands where you can just kind of tune out the lyrics and just enjoy the sounds, like Depeche Mode or something like that. You're like, I couldn't name the topic of one Depeche Mode song, right? I don't know. They're talking about like, some sort of political, I don't know, but does it sound cool? Maybe, right? But you have to. Does. You can't really enjoy Rage Against the Machine unless you're at least semi on board with the message.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's just really obnoxious.
I have one friend who really likes Rage Against the Machine that I would never guess likes Rage Against the Machine, but it's okay. We're not going to talk about her here. It's okay. But yeah, no, in general, you're right. It was,
they got some cool riffs. I mean, Tom Morello's talented. I like some of the sounds.
No, but I think they're freaking amazing, dude. Like, I was telling you a little bit earlier, there was a cover of, what's his face? It's Travis Barker, but he does this because he played in the drummer from Blink-182 or whatever.
Yeah, he's the one who's dating Megan Fox, right? No,
I think they are. I think I saw
no. He's with one of the Kardashians.
That's what it is.
Yeah,
Whatever
it's
I was
it's
thinking.
the machine gun. They're both a lot. They got tattoo people. Anyway, sorry.
Right. And like,
Anyway, go
so
ahead.
that Machine Gun Kelly thing, I didn't know what that was. And I mentioned it to Sally. She's like, oh, you'll hate that. I was like, but Travis Barker's in it. She's like, don't worry. She's like, just trust me. You'll hate it. I was like, okay, you're right. But Travis Barker also has done a lot of shit that I think is terrible. Like
Yeah.
a bunch of side parts, but that's like his music stuff. But also he's in other bands that are really, really good. But like they did a cover of Killing in the Name of, which was fun watching Travis Barker play it. But like the rest of it was just mediocre. And it was whatever. It's cool. But that's an awesome song. Like that song hits
Yeah.
pretty badass. And
No,
if I
that's
was
it's a
drummer,
jam.
dude. They're super fun songs, and they're pumped up. Their energy, they hit. They're dynamic. They're freaking cookie, and just they're killer. But yeah. What'd you say earlier? You're talking about like you said Christian music. So
Yeah.
I did this thing with my churches involved in like this just a church affiliate group kind of thing, like a church growth group thing. Or a church planning thing, and I played drums a few days on this conference, and a bunch of these. So like it was a bunch of churches, a bunch of guys and girls from across the East Coast, and like all talking music and stuff because all different musicians playing. And there was one moment everybody hit on like this. We love this one DC Talk album, and I was just like, no, it sucked. Screw DC. That
Was it
terrible.
the Jesus Freak or whatever?
I don't even know what it was, but like I was never. I hate Christian music, man. I really do. Like especially that era in my life, like that super popular CCM, like trying to be pop Christian music. That's just the worst thing to me. And like they all loved it in the room. They're like, that song hits, man. Like, oh, that song still's awesome. I was like, nah, dude, every part of that is terrible. Like. But that resonates with people.
Yeah,
still.
like right with like in the Newsboys too, like at that same era.
Gosh, yeah, exactly. But like, if you love those songs, man, and you grew up with that, and like that's your thing, I understand why you still love that. But I don't know, man. I can't get on board with it.
Yeah, I always felt like a
never
heretic when I was in like middle school,
too.
junior high, like just starting to get into music and kind of liking stuff, and they were like, "Hey, you like this stuff?" And it's like, I no.
Is it okay to say no?
Yeah. Is that an acceptable answer? Because like, I'm not saying it's like horrible. It just didn't do anything for me. I'm like, these are my choices. I'm gonna turn on the radio. Sorry, and listen to, Boston or something.
Yeah. And like, there was a few Christian bands that I really tried to like because they were like decent, like rock and roll bands or whatever. And even then, like looking back on it, I was like, nah, I don't listen to those guys anymore. There's a few bands I still actually do listen to that were like Christian punk rock and hardcore bands, but there's not many. But
Yeah.
But it's funny though, because like if they got on their high horse, in their 40s and 50s, and like started lecturing me about shit, I would be annoyed with that too. I'd be like, man, I don't know, it's not your thing, but if that's what you want to get, all preachy about. If all of a sudden like MXPX like hates Donald Trump or starts stumping for Joe Biden, I'd be like, those things are both stupid. That's not what you've ever done. Like, why are you doing that now?
Yeah. I don't know. I guess every person has to make a choice for themselves. Like, what is it that I'm liking about this art or / artist?
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was talking with Shayla the other day. We were in the car talking about like, I don't know, like stuff from the 80s or whatever. And like comparing it to like how inconsistent people are with like their moral panics about stuff,
Yeah.
So, we talked about how like, in the 90s, all the conservatives were like, character matters in a president, and all the liberals were like, it's about policy, really is what it's about. And then 20 years later, everybody switched, and a lot of the like literally the exact same people. And how like, we were talking about somebody like Amy Grant, like, and I just heard the name like in passing, but like all these people were like, oh, Amy Grant, so if you like music, then clearly you like Amy Grant, right? Because you're just supposed to, I guess, in like the pop world. But then like, she like, somebody had a divorce. I don't even know who she, she ended up with like this country guy, Vince Gill, and it was like a whole scandal or whatever. And everybody's like,
I didn't know that.
I don't know. I don't know the exact, somebody cheated on somebody. I don't know. But it's like, well, does that mean that her songs aren't good anymore? Like, it always sort of baffled me. Like, if you, I don't listen to music so that I can emulate the lifestyle of the person who wrote it.
Right.
Right? Because if you do that, you're pretty limited. You know, what do you got? You got
Sure.
you know, like Kirk Cameron, maybe like Pat Boone. Like you're gonna. Everybody has problems, right? Like I don't even want.
That one Kirk Cameron album is freaking amazing.
Well, I don't know. I mean, he doesn't play music, but I'm just saying, like he's like.
It's
But
like
it's just like
Growing Pains.
I wouldn't even want people emulating my life. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
sure. Yeah.
So like you can't listen to Mozart. I mean, that guy was a crazy person. You know, like Jimmy Page married a 13-year-old. You know, like so Led Zeppelin's out. You know, same with Nugent and all these people. So it's like it's a strange thing to be like, oh well, I'm not listening to this artist anymore. Like most people did something weird or bad in their lives. I don't know.
First of all, that song El Shaddai sucks. Okay, I'm gonna say it out there. I'm putting it out there. El
I
Shaddai's
can't.
a stupid song.
I think I've vague. I can't even place it in my head.
That's the only Amy Grant song I can think of, and it's like somehow tied into like praise and worship music. It's terrible, but yeah, the idea of like emulating the rock stars or like only listening to people that somehow fit your narrow view of your worldview. And it's very funny. Like, and I know a lot of people that are selective about it. They're like, oh, this person came out and they're a liberal now. I'm not listening to that. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Like I like or like with like sports that came out huge, like the Black Lives Matter thing. I know
Yeah.
so many people that were like, well, that's it for me. I'm never watching the NFL again. I'm like, are you kidding me? I was like,
So
we've
let
watched
me-
every football. We've watched.
let's
every
get this
Patriots game
straight.
for like 20
When-
years straight.
when Michael Vick was torturing dogs, no problem, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
But Kaepernick takes a knee. All of a sudden, hold on.
Yeah, but like, and then, but like, you would used to like, okay, well, okay, so these are the best of the best people in their field, right? So that's why they're the NFL. That's why they're the Major League Baseball. Like, they're the pinnacle of their craft and their field. So we watch it, we enjoy it. If you get brain cancer, are you like double checking with the brain surgeon? Be like, hey man, let me fill out this political,
Yeah.
plot graph thing for me and see where you're at. Like,
Did you
"Nah,
put one of
know
those
what?
signs in your yard? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you really think love is love? I don't know. Or maybe you can get this cancer out of my brain. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like that's no one has that dividing line. It's just it's the ancillary stuff that you
It's
feel
like,
is
yeah,
just
people who are like,
impossible.
I don't want to go see Mission Impossible movies because Tom Cruise is insane. I'm like, two things can be true at once. Mission Impossible movies can be awesome while also understanding that Tom Cruise is a little bit crazy.
Sure.
You know, I mean, like Alec Baldwin just killed someone. He's also a very talented actor. Those are both
Yeah.
true statements.
Jack Donaghy is probably one of the best characters ever on sitcom television. And
Yeah.
it was all Alec Baldwin, man. Which is so funny because like he played the exact opposite of him in life.
Yeah.
That character. Sorry,
But
I'm
he
getting on a
strangely
tangent here a little bit.
imbued that character with a high degree of humanity.
Yes.
Which
yeah.
it makes it hard to hate him as an artist, right? Like everybody in Hollywood's like super left wing. You can't really do anything about that.
Mm-hmm.
But he could have easily made Jack Donaghy a detestable person,
He could have been like Mr. Burns.
right? But even in his caricature of this sort of person who, like, probably has a lot of friends in Martha's Vineyard, right?
Right.
He gave Jack Donaghy a lot of sympathetic qualities.
Sure.
And same thing with Tina Fey's character. She's like the main character, but she has a lot of failings. Like she could have easily made herself perfect. I think they're both talented enough artists to know that, people wouldn't find that interesting. But anyway, that's a great show.
Yeah, it was. But yeah. Whatever. How again. And I say again because we talked about this personally. Why are there live bullets on a freaking movie set ever? What's the purpose of that?
So apparently,
Is there a good? There has to be a good reason.
well, there's a reason. Whether it's good or not, I don't know. I mean,
Okay.
the scuttlebutt that's coming out about the set was that it was a low budget movie, and like they were trying to cut costs or whatever. So secondary, before all the murdering was happening,
The manslaughter.
supposedly like some of the people, like the union people, like walked off the set because they were afraid that like corners were being cut safety wise.
There were some safety violations. Yeah. Okay.
And supposedly, like some of the crew were like using some of these guns for like target practice. Like, I mean, they're out in the desert shooting a Western.
Okay.
And so somebody like somewhere, like there wasn't like normally you would have like a master of arms type person, an
Right.
armorer who's like, you're checking stuff in and checking it out. And then like, each weapon goes through like a couple of checks for a handler before it's handed to a talent to be used. Like
Okay. Yeah.
they were kind of lax on that. So like they went to lunch or something like that. And so the assistant director like picked up a gun that they thought was empty and they just handed it to Alec Baldwin. He's like, all right. And he didn't bother to check it, and then accidents happen that way. So it's one of those things where it's like it's a cascade of failings, right?
Okay.
Like if you have a movie set and you want to cut costs, okay, maybe you do like some cheap digital effects or maybe you reuse some costumes. The area you don't want to cut costs on is the gun safety part of the budget. You know what I mean?
Yeah. On like a Western type vibe thing with guns.
Yeah. So
Okay. So
Yeah.
the idea is somebody took the weapon, used it outside of the movie scope.
probably.
And then somehow it stayed loaded and came back on the set and nobody checked it.
Something like that,
Theoretically.
right?
Okay.
And so the question is, I'm not necessarily a gun person, but like, Alec Baldwin's been on sets for decades handling weapons.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like he should have known, like, every time you pick up a weapon and you're going to point it, it's just standard gun, trigger discipline gun safety. Like you check, is a round in there? Like, what's the deal? So yeah, it's probably a manslaughter. But if there's not a criminal charge, I mean, there's definitely going to be some sort of civil liability. I mean
For
movie
sure.
that movie's never getting released.
No. Yeah. The family of the person who got shot and killed is going to make a lot of money, and rightly so, probably so.
Yeah, I mean, she had like
Yeah, I mean-
a husband and a kid.
Yeah, that's terrible. But
Yeah,
but that is terrible. That's-
yeah,
that story, and also, gosh, it's kind of gross, man. Because then, like, I get that Alec Baldwin is, on the left side of things and obnoxious on his personal beliefs and how he's vocal about it. However, there's
I
no
feel
way
bad
he
for him.
Yeah, I feel bad for him too. And
I mean, who hasn't made a mistake? I mean, granted, that's a crappy mistake.
that's a big mistake.
It's like
But,
not
like-
check. It's not like backing up in a parking lot, and not checking to see if there's a kid behind you.
Ugh.
I mean, like imagine living with that. You go, yeah, I fucked up.
Yeah.
I can admit that and feel terrible. He's
Right.
carrying that for the rest of his life.
Yeah. There's been a lot of it's probably one of the unfortunate things about, the age we live in. Like, you can see everybody want to pile on somebody for something like that. And not that like the pile on's not somewhat deserved a little bit, but if again, I don't really actually I don't know. Like, everyone's like anti-gun zealot, the right way headline. Anti-gun zealot Alec Baldwin murders somebody. But like,
Yeah, that seems a
like
little.
that's not a fair headline. And you would be like, you wouldn't want that to be said about you if you said that. I mean, it's not like you said it earlier. You're like the murder, like murder. I mean, you didn't really murder somebody.
Yeah,
Unless
right.
you did it intent. Yeah, and you didn't mean it like that. I'm just, it just comes across that way, and that's just an unfortunate aspect of our our shitty society.
Yeah, it's
We are.
weird to think that like people who disagree with Alec Baldwin politically, their first thought is to be like, like,
Yeah, right.
like no,
exactly.
like I don't agree
It's
with
like,
him, but
score. He's an asshole. I was right, and someone's dead, and I'm
like
I'm-
no, that's
it's
not something
better?
to celebrate.
Yeah, like it's not a good thing, man. Ugh. All right, that's whatever. That's just those are the things that threw me for a loop on that whole story. But yeah, that's all crazy though. That's a sad thing.
Yeah.
all in all. So yeah, that'd be crazy. Yeah, that would suck having to live with that for sure.
Well, it's like, did you ever hear the story of the Twilight Zone movie?
No.
So this was like
Or-
early 80s. They were making a Twilight Zone movie. And so the idea was that it was going to be, I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's actually really good. It's like 4 segments, you know what I mean? Like 4
Okay.
kind of like half-hour long Twilight Zone episodes made with a big budget. So, and they had different directors. So like Steven Spielberg made a segment.
no overarching story. It was just individual.
Yeah,
like,
little vignettes.
like okay.
So I'm trying to think. Like Joe Dante did one about like some sort of haunted house kind of horror thing. The guy who did Mad Max, what's his name? Okay, I forget his name. Anyway,
John
he did.
Favreau.
No. You know the idea of like there's something on the wing. That old
Oh,
classic
yeah.
story. Yeah. So they remade that with like John Lithgow on like a modern budget and special effects and stuff. Anyway,
Oh,
so
I
but
like
one of the segments was John Landis, the guy who made like Blues Brothers and Animal House and stuff. They were doing a segment. It was called The Bigot, and it's actually, if you watch it, it's pretty striking. They wouldn't be able to make it today because there's this like overt racist dude who's like walking around like complaining to his buddies about like the and the and all these like slurs he's throwing out there. I'm like watching it with Levi. I'm like, oh shit. Anyway, so
The whites.
yeah, he complains about like the Jews and all these people taking his jobs and stuff like that. And he's like ranting and raving. He almost gets in a fight in the bar. And so he goes out the back door of the bar, and then he's like, I don't recognize this alleyway. And so like, and then he walks down the street. And he sees like a Star of David on a thing, and then he sees like these Nazis walking by. Somehow
He transports back.
he transported to like the Warsaw Ghetto, and the Nazis are chasing him, and so he has to hide out with this Jewish family. And so he's like,
It
he doesn't
turns
know
out
what.
he's Anne Frank.
So, and then he does this whole thing. He runs from the Nazis and he jumps out a window and he splashes into a river, and he's like, what? And he's in the middle of Alabama in like 1930. And so then there these KKK guys show up, and they're like, get him, he's over there. And so he has to run from these like this KKK mob. And he's about to get lynched or whatever. And then he finally escapes from those people. And then he shows up and he's like, he's a Vietnamese person in South Vietnam, and he's getting chased by these American GIs and stuff like that. So basically, like, and so by the end of the story, he like he sort of grows a little bit of a conscience, and he like wants to sacrifice himself to save these like two Vietnamese kids that are about to get blown up by a Huey that's like dropping a bomb or something. So. And then then some bomb blows up, and then he ends up and he's on a train he's back in Warsaw again, and he's going to like Auschwitz or something. And so then that's like the end of the episode. And you're like, wow, it's a pretty cool little Twilight Zone story. But then when you read the backstory, you realize, oh, there was actually a whole other scene. And the scene where he was saving these Vietnamese kids, in the movie, he just sort of like he runs, there's a vague explosion, then he's in the next scene. But in reality, he was a whole longer thing where he was going to save these two kids and like do something. It was a helicopter, it was some stunt. While they were filming it, the helicopter crashed and like 5 people died, including the actor and the 2 kids and the helicopter pilot. And it was like a huge, lawsuit and everything like that. And they're like, do we finish this movie? And then so Spielberg had to do this damage control and stuff like that.
The
And
actor in the scene, the bigot in the scene died.
yeah, luckily they had
Wow.
already filmed his scenes that
filmed
come
the other
after
stuff.
that.
Yeah,
And so
okay.
like it was because they had been working, like the kids were working like longer hours than they were supposed to, like under the table, because kids can only work like 8 hours a day or whatever.
Flying helicopters at 8 years old.
Yeah.
That's only
was-
in Vietnam, man.
Yeah. So it was a big thing, and like the movie made like no money. So
Yeah, I've never even heard of this.
because they had advertised it as being this huge thing where like all these named directors were making
Yeah, that's
different
cool.
parts of it. And then like when this whole thing came out, it was like a giant lawsuit, and the studio was like, all right, they just sort of shuffled it into theaters kind of. And it's kind of a shame because the movie itself is good. It's interesting, but like, yeah, it's a weird scene type of. It's surprising that stuff doesn't happen more often, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure. The amount of movies that get made.
I mean, you think about like the idea that like you watch a movie like John Wick and you're like, you're telling me nobody got hurt the whole movie? You know what I mean?
Yeah. A lot of guns, a lot of punching, a lot of getting thrown around. A lot of stuntmen, I guess.
Yeah. That's one of those. Have you seen those interviews with Keanu Reeves where he's like, they'd say that's one of the reasons he's like one of the nicest people in the world, because he gets in there and they're like, Jay Leno would be like, so you're doing a lot of fighting in this movie. He's like, actually, when you see me like running, that's me, right? But then when John Wick gets hit by a car, that's my brilliant stuntman, Steve. And he's one of these. He's always throwing praise at like all the people who do the real stunts.
Right.
And he's, I really just do a little bit anyway.
I literally learned just how to point a gun and shoot it accurately, which actually was still a lot of work. But
Yeah, I mean, you see those videos of Keanu Reeves doing like his gun training and stuff. You're like, if Alec Baldwin had Keanu Reeves' training, this never would have happened.
this is true. Hey, we got a comment. And then I want to mention something about an old movie after that. Just watched Birds. Same thing happened to Pee-Pee, the main character. Ooh.
That's a great movie.
Pippi was literally thrown to the birds during the birds.
Oh, that was like
Nicole. Happy birthday, by the way, Nicole. Sometime this week, I think, is your birthday. Sorry, sidebar.
what was the Tarantino movie we talked about? Inglourious Bastards, the scene where Diane Kruger gets strangled by the Nazi dude.
Uh-huh.
Apparently, like, that was Tarantino's actual hands doing the strangling, and she like got hurt and like passed out and stuff, and it was like a whole nobody said anything when they made the movie, and then like in 2018 when all the Me Too stuff was happening, somebody came out and was like, actually Diane Kruger got strangled by Quentin Tarantino in 2011 or whatever. And
Okay, poor girl. No, it still sucks. I accidentally watched 1984 last night, the movie.
oh yeah, is that good?
Yes. Okay. So
I've never seen it. I saw it on Amazon. I was about to watch it.
Exactly. So I went on Amazon to turn something else on. I was like, "Ooh, cool!" Because I had just I did a lot of driving here recently. I went down to Florida a bunch of times.
Yeah.
I spent like 38 hours in a car in like 3 days. So I listened to the audiobook because I never really gotten through that whole book. I was like, I'm gonna listen to this. I want to. So I finished the book. Whatever, it was great. And then like I wanted to watch the movie. Like the guy, who's the actor in it? John Hunt, whatever.
Hurt.
I think it's Hurt. Is it Hurt? Yes, right. Hurt. Yeah. He was like, yeah, that's right.
The guy who was an alien.
Yes, the chest explode. Yep, that guy. He like a million other things. Obviously,
Right.
but...
He was that one guy's dad in Red Dawn.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
No, wait, no, that was a different guy. That was Harry. No, John Hurt was in V for Vendetta.
He was in Viva Vendetta.
Yeah.
He was also in like Harry Potter, like recently stuff. But he's also
right.
done like he's done 8,000 other. Like Sally recognized him. I was like, I bet he's from Harry Potter. He's English, and you know who he is. So that's who it was. But like, so yeah, watching it was good. It was a cool interpretation of the book. It was fine. It was creepy. Like the movie's made from the movie's in the 80s, so it was very dank. It's very dark. It's very whatever. It's a long book. Whatever. Book interpretations aren't always great. And but it was fun watching, man. It was interesting. The book is a super downer, and it really rings true to me. But like, it's such a depressing book. Have you read the book? Or
I haven't read it since high school, and I may not have
exactly.
actually read it. I may have just read the Cliff Notes.
I think that's how it was for me, because like Sally says, yeah, I read that. I was like, I don't think I actually read it. That, or if I did,
when you peruse I get that one in Brave New World confused. When you peruse the plot points, you're like, this all sounds very familiar.
Brave New World is a little different, and I'm excited because I downloaded the audiobook. I'm going to start listening to that again. But Brave New World's more like it is dystopian, but it's just like there's a faction or a group of human beings that are just basically petri dished grown, and like everything's taken care for. Everything's like, and then there's the wild human beings that live out in the real world, and then there's a clash.
Right.
And I don't specifically remember the clash because I read it in high school. But so I'm excited to listen to that. But however, watching the Brave New World and listening to the Brave New World, not Brave New World, sorry, 1984. All the freaking like, there's so many cultural freaking phrases that came from that book, like Orwell's like genius stuff, like memory hole, like double speak, like there's like 10 other things you go to that, and like that comes up in like everyday parlance a lot.
Yeah.
But it was fun watching the movie. I would watch it. It was worthwhile watching.
Yeah.
It's funny. It said brief nudity. There's a lot of full frontal nudity in that movie. It's not brief. It's like, I don't know. It had to have been rated R. If it wasn't rated R,
it could be like 80s PG.
Yes. Also, one of my favorite band names ever. If I'm ever in a new band, I'm calling it 80s.
That's
PG,
hilarious.
because that is such a good band name, dude. But
write that down.
I have. I keep saying it. No one's taking it, but also nobody wants to start a band with me because nobody has time because we're all adults. So whatever.
I would contribute to a side project called 80s PG.
Well, let's figure out how to write some music, Dan. We'll just do covers of Rage Against the Machine and
but do it like with like, like little like old Casio synths and stuff.
Oh no, I don't support that.
Oh, okay.
That's not fun for a drummer. Sorry. I get the idea.
You don't use a drum machine. You use live drums.
Oh, Okay, well then yes, if there's live drums, I'm all in. So
Yeah, it's not like not that kind of stuff.
but either way, that was funny. Again, like I really didn't mean to watch it. I was like, hey, I'm gonna turn this on real quick. I just want to see how this looks. And then like 2 hours later, I was like, I didn't mean to finish that movie. I just watched the whole thing.
Yeah, I've been meaning to check it out because I was sort of an empty spot, a blind spot in my general film oeuvre. So yeah, okay, I'll check it out.
Yeah, it's funny you said that about the Brave New World, though. I'm gonna listen to that again, or I'm going to listen to it as opposed to read it because I don't have time to read. Audiobooks are great.
I was elected to lead, not to read.
I spent a lot of time in my car. I got my headphones in a lot. So.
Fun fact: Aldous Huxley was killed. Well, not was killed. He died on the same day that C.S. Lewis died, which was also the same day that Kennedy was shot.
Really?
All three people died on the same day.
Interesting.
I only know this because I had a buddy of mine like 10 years ago who had this book that that he gave to me to read. It was actually pretty interesting. It was written by like some Christian philosopher or whatever. And it basically, the premise of the book was these three guys show up in like purgatory at the same time. And they're like, what are we doing here? I guess we're dead. And so they start arguing about like philosophy and stuff. So it's basically it's like a philosophy book, but it's with the weird narrative of these three people, right? So Kennedy being like kind of he was a Catholic, Lewis being a Christian, and Huxley being an atheist, and they start debating all this stuff. It's kind of cheesy and corny. Like if I read it again, I probably wouldn't really like it. But I remember finding it very interesting.
Yeah, like
they talk about morality and existence and the afterlife and all that kind of stuff.
Huxley's an interesting dude. I can't. I'm not gonna speak about him like I know a lot about it, but like the fiction stuff he writes resonates with me on a true level. His worldview doesn't resonate with me at all. So I wonder how much of it is like I'm reading into it something I want to read into, or I'm not understanding what he's trying to say. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I don't know. Like there's a million Aldous Huxley quotes. I'm just like, that's dead on. And like, that's prophetic. And like, that's our society now. And that's shitty. But also I think he's wrong about a lot of other things. But also, again, I don't know a million things about it. I'm not a scholar here on that.
Yeah. Anytime you get people like that who are very prolific and they have a tendency to spin a good yarn, there's going to be some cool sounding phrases that like basic dudes like us are probably going to take out of context. You know what I mean? Like you can find like a Nietzsche quote to fit any sort of circumstance, but that doesn't, you throw that out there. Doesn't mean I'm like, okay, so is this my philosophy now? No, but so.
No, no. I just think, like, I think the social criticisms are dead on and we're pretty good. And he's probably right. But like everything else is, I don't probably agree with. Actually, I know I don't, but
yeah.
So then it just makes me question and go like, well, the social criticisms, am I misunderstanding the criticisms or maybe I'm not?
Well, you can be good at diagnosing. That doesn't mean you have the right answer. I mean,
sure.
I mean, look at, I mean, that makes me think of like Bernie Sanders. He'll come up and say something like, these banks are getting bailed out and they're the problem. They're screwing the regular people. And I'm like,
yeah,
okay, sure.
Yeah,
and
correct.
So, and then he's like, and then the next thing is like, so the solution is, I'm like, hold on. So, you can be half right. You can be half right.
Yeah. No, yeah, you're right. You can't be half right. Or you can, yeah, I guess so. Or maybe I'm half right. I don't know. I'm always right. Not Someone joked to me the other day and made a philosophy joke. And I was like, what? They're like, no, they like a phrase in philosophy, like a modus or something. I was like, what? He's like, aren't you a philosophy major? I was like, no, I'm just I'm an arrogant like jerk with a big opinion. He's like, I thought you were a philosophy major. I was like, nah, I'm just an asshole.
It's like, you take that back.
And then he's like, well, yeah, philosophy major. I was like, yeah, I know, I get it, but no, I'm not. Sorry, I didn't get that. I was like, now that you say it, I know what you're talking about, but like, I off the top of my head, I don't have that.
He's like, now I'm going home and trying to think like, all right, what signals am I giving off that makes Joe Average think that I'm a philosophy major? And like, do I need to do some like personal work here?
Yeah. No, I know what it is. Again, it's arrogant opinionated asshole. That's why people like if you at one point go, I see what you're saying, and here's why I think it's wrong. You're automatically like a philosophizer. You're like Socrates.
That's a pretty low bar, right? Because
It is a low bar.
regular people don't think about anything beyond.
That's what I
You know,
mean.
they're like, it's like they're swimming in the ocean. They're like, I don't see any sharks.
So everything I've learned has come from The Simpsons. So like, Lisa's like, "Hey, Dad, I have this rock, and this rock gets like it repels bears," and he's like, "Really?" She's like, "I don't see any bears. Would you like this rock?" He's like, "Give me." It's exactly what you said. It's like, so like it is a low bar. Like I'm not that smart of a person. It's just to be like a little bit just like, hey, can we think about this for 5 seconds? People are like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's like that joke about dogs where like in the mind of a dog, it's like every day the mailman comes here. Every day I bark profusely at the mailman. To date, the mailman has not murdered my family. Yeah. So I clearly have the power of barking to thank for this.
I don't know. I think most people just don't give themselves enough credit, or don't care. I don't know. I enjoy obviously picking apart stuff. If I had more time, like philosophy would be great, but like I don't have time to like research all that kind of stuff. It's amateur hour over here all day, every day.
It's like imagine like somebody told you like you might have mold in your house. You can find out by pulling back this panel and looking. I feel like most people don't want to look because they're like, it's like Schrodinger's mold, right? Yeah. As long as they don't look, there's no mold.
Bad name. That's Schrodinger's mold. That's pretty good.
Right. So like most people don't want to examine the potential cracks in their viewpoint because they're like, oh crap, what if I discover that like this whole thing is built on like a house of cards? No, I got to rebuild my whole belief system. That's not fun. So,
short sidebar, and we can finish up soon. But like, maybe we can talk about this later. I've been reading a lot.
I'm still laughing at Schrodinger's mold.
That's pretty good.
All right.
There's a little fissure in like the libertarian community. There's like this thing called post-libertarianism now. That's just like
it's just where pretentious people put post in front of any word.
Oh, absolutely.
Like post rock, post grunge, like you know.
Yes. Yeah. But like, so basically, it's people who are libertarian who just shit hard on anybody who's a libertarian who's involved in politics or like involved in like the political discussion anymore, because it's useless, it's dumb, and you need to live your life outside of that. And also somehow that's supposed to liberate you. And if you focus in on that and then focus on your own security, taking care of your own family, that's the best way to move forward and the best way to push the liberty movement, whatever that means. And like, it's a fun little argument.
How do you do that by not engaging? Whatever.
I don't know. I know. But also I don't really engage much I engage, like we talk about it, but like, I'm not involved in political parties. Like I don't vote. I'm not a libertarian, like registered, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but you're not shitting on anybody who decides to do that.
No, I'm not. Right. So it's just an interesting question of if you believe in like just in general libertarianism, a liberty mind. You have a liberty mindset. So like, do you achieve that through the political process, or do you achieve that by living well and providing for yourself? But that's only for, I don't know. It's a weird. Yeah, I think maybe. Yeah, maybe yes. I don't know.
I mean, yes to both. Right.
Right. That's what I mean. Yeah. No, I knew what you were saying.
Okay.
I'm not sure. It was just, it's an interesting, it's a big fissure in the stupid libertarian world. If you follow that on Twitter, which I know you probably don't.
I don't really, but I mean, I've seen that kind of juxtaposition.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, it is a catch-22, especially for like an anarchist. You're like, okay, so like, I want to live life and let people be free. The government is the biggest impediment to freedom. How do you end the government, or how do you restrict government? Really, the best way is to get involved in government.
Well, that's like saying I don't really like war. You know, war is bad.
Right.
And then there's these people over here. Oh wait, they're warring. All right, the only way to stop them is to war. It's right. Like war becomes a verb now, and it's like, oh well, now I'm a war person. Right.
Yeah.
Like, oh crap.
So how do you deal with that? Freaking Schrodinger's mold. Here we go. This is what I'm talking about. I don't know what's going on, man. It throws me for a little bit of a loop, only because I question very little.
Yeah.
I don't know. But that was my sidebar for political conversations.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It is, but I don't know. Whatever. I got no answers.
Yeah, me neither.
I like to rant about it though. Here we are.
Yeah.
An hour and 10 minutes of also this is week number 3 of us not knowing what we were going to talk about until we start. Maybe throw a little bit of effort into here.
Yeah. All right. We'll come up with something scheduled and planned for next week.
I don't know, but sometimes that feels crappy too. So I don't mind winging it whenever we get nothing, but I still enjoyed it. It was fun.
Yeah, we lucked out this week with the whole punk rock thing.
Yeah, that got us jumping on a few things.
Yeah.
Wait, outro. Gotta find it.
Yes.
I don't know where it's at. These damn buttons. I need to get into a platform that I'm more comfortable with. I was waiting for you to say something, so I tried to cut you off.
No, I had nothing. Podcast outro.